Welcome to Scalable Insights. I'm Larry Dillon, the CEO of the Wendover Corporation. We have visiting producer today, Herman Atwell. Herman, how are you today?
I am doing very well. Thank you very much.
I'm excited today to have James Wisdom from EOS, which we're going to talk about that. We met, about a month ago?
That's right, Larry.
And really, really fascinating. So tell us about yourself. Tell us, your sort of journey, through your career and where you are now. And what the heck is EOS?
Well, I'll give you the fun version. So all the way back in college, I started an e-newsletter. And I thought it was fun until I was at a college party, and I ran into a girl who said she loved the e-newsletter. I never met her before. So I was like, wait a minute, this internet, I should get involved. So I took my English degree and turned it into what was in effect a digital marketing degree with computer science classes. Then I joined QVC, the home shopping TV channel that everybody knows about, in 2000. And grew that e-commerce platform there within their digital marketing e-commerce from a $120 million a year site to a $1 billion a year site.
Oh, wow.
At that time in 2007, believe it or not, Larry, listen to this, QVC was the third largest e-commerce site in the United States after Dell and Amazon.
Oh, wow.
So they were early movers, and we did great. But I decided to break out, went to work at Accenture for a couple of years, where I did work at Best Buy and Cargill and United Airlines. And then the CMO over at QVC joined Aflac, so brought me over there, grew that digital team from, 3 people to 15. The budget went from $400,000 a year to $10 million a year in digital marketing. And then after that, a couple of stints with a short stint with Alfred Angelo, the bridal company, again, leading digital marketing and marketing initiatives, big ones. And then Ronstadt, and then I went out and opened my own agency. This is about 6 years ago. I was getting sick of the whole bureaucracy of big companies and their big bureaucratic problems. So I thought I'm going to open my own agency and work with smaller companies that won't have those kinds of problems. I was not as smart as I thought I was, because they have exactly the same problems, if not worse. So, and worse yet, I found myself having the same kinds of problems in my own company. I wasn't organized. My business development was a mess. I didn't have a real vision for the future. So I started asking people in my network. And it turns out I knew 2 separate people, completely unrelated, that both told me to check out EOS. So I did EOS in my own agency. And I tripled my revenues over 3 years. Loved it. And then over the years since then, I still have the marketing agency, but I made a decision about a year ago to start to focus really on EOS, because I love the structural element of it. And frankly, I'm passionate about helping companies blow up and take off. And I've been learning a lot. And it sort of massages the consulting side of my brain. I get to get into these companies that are hurting and bring them joy and bring them better lives and bring them growth and profitability that they have never dreamed of and never had before. So that's what I'm about. That's who I am. Any questions?
Yeah, sure. So for the digital marketing aspect of it, what's the key to success in that?
That's a great question, but it depends. It really depends on who your target market is, right? So I think that's one of the things that a lot of folks, small to large, don't really spend a lot of time really understanding their target market and talking to their target market. Where I've been really successful, both as a marketer and in my EOS work, has been in guiding people toward actually having conversations with their customers and their prospects and asking them questions about what they really want and what they expect and how they expect to get it. And it's not so much about the customer guiding the business as much as a reality check for how you should be moving your business and what direction you should be taking it and how you should be communicating what your business is all about to that audience. So I can't sit here and say like this is the secret sauce, like the secret sauce to digital marketing is ... As much as it is, I think, opening communication channels wherever they are. And in one of your prior episodes with Ryan, I noticed he talked about social media a lot. And I think that that's exactly what I'm talking about. He's opened a channel with his customers and his prospects where they feel like they're getting to know him, and it's a bi-directional communication channel where they're talking to him and he's talking to them, and he's developing a really meaningful, deep understanding of what they actually want. And so he's guiding his business with that, whether he's conscious of it or not. I think that that's what every business needs to do, big and small, is be having those conversations to guide their future.
Yeah, and I think sometimes just getting the numbers about your market. One of the things that really changed my career, we were doing business to business, right? So commercial moving. And I got the little book, you used to get that, well, they still do, from Info USA, which is now Data Axle. And I saw in there, you know, they had a list of like, we've got 20 million businesses. And then they had a little chart, and they said, we've got 56% had less than 5 employees.
Yep.
And then another 25% had less than 10. So I'm like, wait, 75% of companies have less than 10 employees. They're not even prospects.
They're basically solopreneurs.
Yeah. So, and then when I found out that of the 70-80% that had less than 10 employees, half of those I didn't want to do business with because they were beauty parlors or gas stations or whatever.
Sure.
So I'm like, oh, so one of our locations was Baltimore. There's 60,000 businesses. There's only 6,000 prospects, period.
Yep.
End of story. So I'm like, I'm just going to get on the phone and talk to all of them.
Yep.
And that's what we did. But if you know, and sometimes the answer is that simple, just by narrowing it down. Because if it gets small enough, to your point, why not just get on the phone and call all of them?
Right.
If it's that small. Now you're dealing a lot with consumer stuff where it's millions, where that's just not feasible, and the dollar value is low. But in B2B, it's a different situation where any one prospect could be $1 million deal.
Yep.
And that's a completely different thing. But so with digital marketing, so this is involving like interactions on your Facebook or Twitter, as well as what other kinds of things are you helping them? Is part of the solution like pay-per-click? Is it SEO or?
Sure. Well, in my background, digital marketing has meant everything from web to mobile to social media, pay-per-click, SEO, user experience design across all those. But frequently the starting point is within digital marketing is, well, what's your actual marketing strategy? What I've had in my agency, and frankly what I've seen in larger organizations, is that there's not clarity on what the company is actually trying to accomplish, who their target market is, and what their value proposition is. So when you come in and you say something like, okay, well, we want to build out a website, or we want to refresh our website, well, okay, who's it for? And what do you need to say? What are you doing that's special? So that tends to be the starting point where everything else derives. But yeah, everything you just mentioned, even I've done significant work with cross-channel where we're developing print marketing advertisements that are actually driving to social, or we're doing in-store engagement with apps where they're interacting with a store app that while they're actually in the store, or they're using modules or beacons, that type of thing. So it's everything under the sun. And, it's gone from being, digital marketing has gone from being 15% of marketing spend, which was where it was about 20 years ago, to being about 85% of marketing spend for a typical organization. I'm talking about even smaller organizations. That has flipped completely, where people are spending a lot less time and energy on print and broadcast because they can see direct results with digital. It's all trackable, right? Where with TV, if you're not doing scale on TV, it can be pretty tough to get really good metrics on performance. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. So talk to us about EOS. What does EOS mean? How does it work?
Yep.
What gets you jazzed about this EOS gig that you seem to be excited about?
Well, all right. So EOS is really about helping entrepreneurs and business owners get more of what they want out of their business. And when I say entrepreneurs and business owners, I am talking about people that are leading companies that are generally 10 to 250 employees. Now at EOS, we do that with three things that we call vision, traction, and healthy, right? Vision is establishing a common vision across the leadership team of what the company, where's the company going and how they're going to get there. And surprisingly, or maybe you're not surprised, a lot of companies don't have a common vision on the leadership team and through the organization. You've got people sort of working independently for their own goals that they think are correct, but nobody's really had a conversation. So we establish that vision. We establish a plan to achieve that vision. And then the second part is traction. So that's really about establishing the habits, the processes, et cetera, to get the discipline and accountability within the organization for the organization to achieve its vision, to achieve its goal. And then last is healthy, which is about, again, getting everybody on the same page. And what we see that comes out of that is you have a much healthier organization where people are happy working together. They enjoy spending time together. They enjoy trying to achieve common goals together. And what we see is that when I do that with a leadership team, when we get through that vision, traction, and healthy with the leadership team, so goes the entire organization. We see this propagation of a new culture, a new vision through the organization, and everybody works better together. And then you make magic. You see astounding growth over time, and it's fantastic to watch. That's one of the reasons why I'm excited about it, is because seeing it actually happen is incredible, and it's a great opportunity for me to really drive change, which I love.
And explain what EOS.
Yes. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Now it's not software, because people hear OS or they hear software and they think, oh, is it a CRM? No, it's not software. It's really a management operating system that's designed to maximize human potential. So everything I talked about, that vision, traction, and healthy, we're providing the framework for companies to achieve that. They can use whatever software they like, and there actually are a number of software packages that are direct support of the EOS system, but EOS doesn't actually sell one. But there are third parties that love EOS and provide software packages to support it. There's about 100,000 companies running on EOS in the United States, globally right now. So there's a pretty healthy market for people doing it. And I've discovered myself that just talking to people, you run into people all the time that, oh, I work for a company that runs on EOS, or, oh, I did EOS 5 years ago. It changed my life. So it's really good. A lot of people are familiar with the book Traction, which is a best-selling entrepreneurial book from about 10 or 15 years ago, written by Gino Wickman. And that really set the foundation for EOS, and EOS grew out of that. And the full system, sort of Traction is the starting point. You read Traction. A lot of entrepreneurs read Traction. They say, okay, this is what I want to do. I need some help to do it. And then they call me and say, hey, James, I want to put EOS or Traction in place in my business. Can you help me do that? And that's what I do.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I often see, working with our clients, because, we sell leads, we do appointment setting. But what we've had to do is, sort of provide the coaching, right? Because, and I think I talked to you about this. I just, I've done this 5 times, where I pose as the perfect prospect. One time I did survey 500 IT companies, right? Big, medium, small. Called up, said, I've got a budget for what you sell. I want someone to call me. And I think I told you, out of the 500, only 250 responded. Here's my name. I have a budget.
That's actually not bad.
And then when they called in, they got like this warm response, because it went right to the receptionist desk with a separate phone line. And so she answered, "Oh, you just missed James. He just, he'll be back tomorrow at 3:00. You didn't hear that from me. Call at 3 and I'll put you right through." Right?
Yep.
That never happens. Right? And only half called back.
Yep.
And only half called after that.
Yep.
And only half. By the fourth time, they all pretty. And every single time that I've done that, exactly the same ratios. It's crazy.
Yeah.
At all different industries.
Yep.
But so we coach, and then I have a guy that worked for me, which you might have seen one of his podcasts. We did a series with him, about 10 podcasts. David Parry. He's doubled, tripled, quadrupled 15 companies in the last 20 years, just basically executing on all the opportunity that's availed itself to the company. No acquisitions, no new marketing, just executing on all the opportunity. And it blows my mind because, you work so hard for all the marketing. And I know marketing people were upset with salespeople because they give them, you get this stuff, right? Where people respond, they fill out a web form, and then nobody bothers to call.
Yep.
So it's an issue. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, so the problem that I see with companies, and I think the biggest stumbling block, where I'll tell people that ratio, and they know it's happening in their company, and they just sort of shrug their shoulders. But what can I do? And that's the biggest stumbling block. Where the rock star, I don't know if you found this. Like, there's 3% rock stars. So what I found is, like, in my travels, there's like 3% rock stars. They all have the same operating system, right? They all say the same things, the same verbiage. And then there's, a bunch of people in the middle, the survivors. They're kind of good on stuff, bad on stuff. And then there's, 5%, 10% victims. It's not their fault, it's someone else's. But I find, like, they have these common things that are holding them back. Hey, but what can I do? Yes, you can do something. Yeah. But are there roadblocks? What are the things that hold? And the other thing that I found was people don't have a realistic view of what it cost to acquire a customer. Like, hey, we got to $1 million in sales. We never spent a dime on marketing or sales. And now you're telling me I'm going to have to spend $100,000 to get to the next million, which is a reasonable number, 10%, right? And it blows their mind. They're like, well, but you've been stuck here for years. This isn't. So those are the two things that I think that people sort of struggle with. And then the acquisition cost of getting more customers. Once, in a perfect world, you would execute the most efficient things first. Well, what does that mean? That the next things are going to cost you more per dollar. And the next things are going to cost you more. And the next thing are going to cost you more. And one of the things that I learned at business school was you continue to spend money on sales and marketing until the gross profit of the last dollar in revenue that you got equals what it costs to generate that piece of revenue. And if you haven't done that, you haven't maximized growth. And that's why you see Salesforce basically zero profit, from 50 million to 2 billion, right? Because they were just dumping it all back on customer acquisition. And it costs, and people can't wrap their mind around that. And it's, and that's one of the limiting factors that I see because, like I said, in a perfect world, you're going to execute on the cheapest stuff. Well, that's done. Now you boosted $2 million or 20 million, whatever it is. Now we got to go to the next one. It's going to cost us more. But that's one of the things that I see. What are, just from my perspective, but other than that, like strategically or specifically, what are some of the things that sort of roadblock where you go in and you're like, I'm going to have trouble with this guy, or, oh, darn it, I knew this was going to be an issue. What are those things that hold us back? As an entrepreneur, what are the things that hold us back that you see?
The most common thing that I see is difficulty delegating. Now let's break that down a little bit. So a lot of entrepreneurs are phenomenally intelligent and creative individuals. They're visionaries is how we talk about them within EOS. And they're great at what they do. They're great at customer service. And they've grown a business so rapidly that they're actually doing 95% of the business themselves. And they haven't sat back and said, okay, well, where do I really want to go with this business? And who do I need on my team to help me actually get there? That's one of the biggest problems that we run into is we have a visionary that's actually attempting to run the operations of the business. They're attempting to run the financial. They're attempting to run, particularly what's really common is they're running the sales and marketing organizations themselves. Those are 4 different jobs. So the most productive activity that we do with entrepreneurs is we establish what's called an accountability chart, which is we work with them and whoever's on the leadership team, and we say, okay, well, what are the roles that this business needs to achieve its vision? So number one, obviously we have to work through and just define what that vision is going to be 10 years out, 3 years out, 1 year out, and even a quarter in the future. But then what seats do we need to have on our accountability chart in order to achieve that goal? Now, I'm not talking about whether Sue is the right financial leader for your organization. I'm talking about what financial leader role and what does that financial leader actually need to do to fulfill the vision of the organization. Same thing with marketing, same thing with sales, same thing with operations. Sometimes there's customer service, sometimes there's HR, sometimes there's IT. It varies company by company by company. And I do that custom with a client. We work through that with a client. So as part of that exercise, the visionary leader generally has to let go of some things. Mm-hmm. And it's not instantaneous. The expectation isn't going to be, we're going to rip the Band-Aid off and good luck. The expectation is, okay, well, let's make a plan for the next 3, 6, 9 months, even a year out into the future. We all recognize that Bob is spending 80% of his time on marketing when he really should be working on partnerships, developing big relationships, and defining the future of the organization, the strategic future of the organization. He's the visionary. So who do we need to get in on the sales side in order to take that football away from Bob and run with it as fast as he can, right? So that is the biggest challenge that a lot of these organizations are going through, is for visionaries to let go and let other people do very, very good work in their respective roles, so that the visionary can be really most effective in his role and, frankly, can have a better life. A lot of visionaries and entrepreneurs see their personal life disappear over time as their business becomes more successful and they're generating more revenue. They're actually getting less of what they want, if what they want is time with their kids and travel time with their girlfriends, their partners, whatever. That starts to disappear and get eclipsed by their business life. And they can't escape that until they delegate. And part of that is getting the right people in the right seats and defining that alongside your vision for the company. So that's one of the biggest things. The other side of that coin is the right people side, which is I work with my clients and we define what the culture is for the organization. So what are the core values? And we do that with a view into what those core values are, so that we use that when we hire people. And if they don't match the core values, you don't hire them. It's that simple. If they do match the core values, great, but they've also got to be really, really, really well aligned to the needs for that particular seat. And if you get both of those things, you got to snatch them up and hold on to them for dear life. But if they miss one or the other, either if they don't match the core values, then they're going to erode the values of your organization over time. If they don't match the needs of the seat, then they're not going to be successful. So we define those things up front and then fill those seats so that it's really, really clear as to how they're going to win. Those are the two biggest things that we wind up doing.
Yeah, and it's funny that you're talking about delegation. I've sometimes I have trouble with managers. Like, as you grow, they have to delegate. Oh yeah, but it's so much
Yep.
easier if I do it. I'm like, well, we can't get to the next stage.
Yep.
Yeah, but they'll screw it up. No, that's you.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they will. Yeah, and then you go back and you coach them and you make that investment. And sometimes even with managers, it's hard for them to sort of let go because, maybe that person can't immediately do it as well as you can, but it just takes time to do that.
Yeah. We actually, we have a great tool, and your listeners can look it up online because it's freely accessible on the EOS site. It's called Delegate and Elevate. And it's one of these tools that you look at and go, God, that's so simple. I can't believe I didn't just think of that. Where it's a quadrant where you define the things that you find most satisfying, that you enjoy doing the most, the things that you do best, the things that you do worst, and the things that you find least satisfying. And that is basically a roadmap for what you need to delegate as a leader. So hold on to the things that you do best, hold on to the things that you love doing, and then everything below that line, which are the things that you don't do very well. And let's be honest, not everybody does everything well, even if you're amazing. And the things that you hate doing, those are the things you need to delegate. And it's one of these things that if you sit down with a manager and go through this Delegate and Elevate tool, it takes about a half an hour, and you come out with like absolute clarity on how you need to delegate. It's brilliant. And I wish I had had it when I was a manager back in, working with big corporate, because I could have done things a lot faster and a lot better when I was a manager.
Yeah. So, how long are the gigs that you have with companies? I think you have a unique engagement process. How long do you typically engage with customers? Walk us through that.
Sure. The engagement model is, well, let me step back for a second. Our goal is to teach these companies how to run themselves very efficiently and effectively and to achieve their goals. It is not a consulting model where we're trying to winnow in and sort of become a parasitic consultant to the business where we're there forever. Our goal is to, quote unquote, graduate. That's how we talk about it internally. Our goal is to graduate companies and allow them to go off and run their businesses and be successful. That said, the way the engagement model works is it's on a session day basis. So I work with the leadership team for 3 session days. They're spaced out over a 60-day period at the beginning, then generally quarterly and an annual meeting each year thereafter. Now, most companies stay within EOS for 2 years. That's the average. Now, they can stop whenever they want. They can stay longer. I know people that have had clients for 7 years, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. Now, the other thing that surprises a lot of people, frankly, about the engagement model is that it's fully guaranteed. So if we don't bring value, and this is true about all EOS implementers that I know of at least, that if we don't bring value, we don't get paid. There's no contract. There's no letter of engagement. There's no retainer fee. None of that goes on. It's literally at the end of the session day, if the client has received value, then I get paid. If they haven't, then I don't. And that's good because that teaches me about the value of what I do and keeps me sharp. So that's the general gist of what the engagement model looks like. Any questions on that, Larry?
Yeah. You're making it really difficult for someone to say no.
Well, I was talking to somebody the other day, and he said, "You know what? We offer the cure to the disease that every entrepreneur is gonna have in their business, which is they're gonna hit the ceiling, right?" And he said to me, he said, because I had made a joke, I was kidding around and being sort of self-effacing. He said, "Be proud of what you do," and I am proud of what I do, but. He said, "You're bringing a cure to people. You're bringing them back their personal lives, and you're doing it in a way that gives them control, which is nice. Because as a consultant, when I was with Accenture, it was much more about sort of creating dependency, and that's not what EOS is about at all."
Yeah, and it's you were talking about delegating. And when I had started the lead business and it started taking off, and I said to myself, do you remember Ross Perot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, this is back in the Ross Perot
I think
day.
I voted for him in the primaries. That was like 1992, right?
I think so. But I said, how long would it take Ross Perot to manage my company? He's got like whatever, $1 billion company. How long? And I was like, I don't know, a few minutes a month, right? That's all the time you would have, right? So that was my vision. My vision was I should be able to get this down to an hour a month to maintain my regular business because the processes were all in place.
Yep.
We had the chi, we had the energy. My ops team was, everybody was on the same page. They were screaming. And then I just started pulling myself out of it, and I got it down to the point where I would get a binder once a month, and I could look first page, everything, all the numbers are hit. I don't need to see anything else. And then if there was something off, I would look through, and I could usually get the answer for that. So I had this binder prepared for me every month that had all the metrics that I needed. And normally I just had to look at the first page, and I'm like, boom, on the mark. And that made a big difference for me. Just that vision of like, well, can I get this down to, and through most of our growth, it was like an hour a month. Now, you have to pay people to do what an entrepreneur would normally do. I was more than happy.
Most are.
More than happy to trade time for, to get, somebody to replace what I was doing. And often they did that particular job much better than I could. Right. But letting go of that income and letting go of that control, I believe that the company did, much better, by me pulling out. And then that allowed me to do. I did other ventures. I did in real estate. I took my time and basically used the cash flow to start other businesses and take from there, and also take some vacation time.
Yeah.
Like I think one took 2 years off. Didn't plan on it. I just
did it.
Just 1 week turned into a month, turned into 12 months, turned into 2 years. And but I think it's that vision of like where do you want to be?
Yep.
And you can make it happen for whatever reason you want. But that and to your point, that just that little concept, that little visualization, how long would it take, Bezos to run your company? How much time would he have for the dollars that you're generating? Well, 5 seconds.
Let me ask you a question, Larry, because something you just said really piqued my curiosity, which is, you said you had to let go. I'm really curious what that experience was like for you, because you'd built this business, and I see this a lot, and it's a unique experience for every entrepreneur. You built this business from the ground up. You were running it, and at some point you had to step back. What was that process like for you?
It was easy. I just automatically did it instinctually. I would have people come up to me, and when I was starting the business, we were rocking and rolling. We were in the basement of this office building because I got a sublease, right, for like a fraction of, you're wheeling and dealing when you're young. And this woman comes in, and I don't read a lot. I'm not a big reader. And this woman who was working for me, really smart gal, she says, I want to talk to you. And she said, you must have read Deming, because everything that you've got going on here is total Deming. And I'm like, I don't know what is Deming. And I don't know. I enjoyed getting, putting people in place and finding those people, and then, hey, have at it. And I've got ADD, so.
Well, it's interesting because what you did intuitively has a lot of the hallmarks of what EOS is all about, right? You talked about this monthly binder that you got with your scorecard. And one of the things that I do with my clients is we establish a scorecard. It's weekly for these companies. It's not monthly, but you were able to step further back than I think most entrepreneurs do. And so that they can really keep a good view of their business over time. There's also a section that we do with process and managing and establishing really, really repeatable processes within the business so that it becomes easier and more profitable and faster and frankly more fun for managers to run the business when they know they're doing things the best and right way every single time. Once you have that established, things start running a lot faster and a lot more smoothly, and people are able to step back. What about, so I guess, were you literally only engaged with them once a month?
For my main business? Yeah, it allowed
yeah.
me to start another business. I spent most of my time I would take big vacations and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get
That's
good
the
people
dream.
in the place that are better at the job, and you tell them what
Yep.
their, salespeople knew exactly what their metrics were.
Mm-hmm.
Every rep had to do 100 dials a day. That's your job. Make sure they do 100 dials a day.
Yep.
They do 100 dials a day. They're going to talk to 10 people. They're going to find 2 people that are interested, and one of those is going to close.
Yep.
Simple. Really
Yeah.
simple. And then my ops, I wound up getting the right person. Went through a couple of folks that, weren't really up to speed. And then I wound up getting the right ops person. And then I had no idea what was going on in ops for years.
That's great.
No clue.
Yeah. Yeah. When you mentioned earlier, and you mentioned something about David Perry earlier, and about how he had built his whole entrepreneurial cycles through optimizing. I was chuckling a bit, and I made a note of it, but I wanted to mention it to you, was the story you told about when you were mystery shopping your competitors. And I'll tell you that—
Not competitors. These are just
other businesses.
Just other businesses for that industry. So we were selling into the computer industry. So we're selling leads, and they're like, the leads stink. And we're like, no, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will tell you that as a longtime digital marketer, I have yet to encounter a business that is actually managing its inbound leads properly. And I'm not just talking about mid-sized businesses. I will tell you that when I arrived at Aflac, they did not have properly working online forums for consumer or their B2B business at that time. And we had to correct that. And what we learned back then, and I don't think this would be a surprise to anybody listening, but it's been proven, is there's a great study from MIT from a long time ago where they studied response time on lead forms. And what they discovered was that for every 5 minutes that elapses after a lead form is submitted, the probability that the business is actually going to reach somebody and be able to close a sale drops by 80%. So one of the keys, and I'm sure you're aware of this because of your business, is really being able to be ultra responsive from a time perspective to leads coming in. And the faster you can move, the more you're going to close those leads. And when you see companies that are letting leads molder for 24, 48 hours or even a week, or just doing nothing with them, that's just they're wasting their time in all their other marketing channels, and it's kind of a shame.
Yeah, there are very, very few companies that execute on all the opportunity. And it's crazy because I do this at, we do appointment setting. We had a situation where a company, 2 of the appointments, sales rep never showed up, never called. So not only did you miss out on the opportunity, but your company now looks bad in terms of image.
Yeah.
That makes you look really bad. And that happens all the time. And they're like, oh, the leads were bad, or we didn't get any appointments. So we called back. Oh, well, Jimmy never showed up.
Yeah.
And listen, for this particular industry, for office furniture, one deal could be a lot of money.
Yep.
Or it could be an ongoing account. And I do this too. And then especially with B2B, because one particular opportunity could be a massive, ongoing client
Sure.
that rings the cash register every single month, not maybe a one-shot deal. And what happens is sales reps will look at a lead and disqualify it because they looked at it. And then I do this exercise, and I'll do this in an audience of like 100, 200 people. And I tell them, I said, in 4 minutes, I can prove that it's impossible to pre-qualify a lead. And I just do the following exercise. How many of you have had a lead that, based on your years of experience, look like a terrible lead, but somebody forced you to get in the car and drive out? Because for B2B, a lot of times you're going face-to-face to the customer.
Yep.
You're driving out dreading, and you go out, and it turns out to be a good deal.
Yep. Yep.
80, 90% of the audience will raise their hand.
Yeah.
And then I say, how many of you qualified to lead yourself? You're like, this is an awesome lead. You're driving out. You're happy. You're already spending the commission check. You're going to get that boat. You get out there, and it's an absolute dud.
Yep.
80, 90%.
Yep.
And then I say, how many of you have had one of those leads that looked absolutely terrible? You're driving out. Not only did you close the deal, but it wound up being one of your top 10 clients. Now, this is B2B. We're not selling toothpaste.
Right.
This is multi-million dollar deals, right?
Yep.
How many of you have had that turned into one of your most profitable deals, top 10 deals of your lifetime? Every single time, 25% of the audience will raise your hand.
Yep.
I've just proven you cannot pre-qualify leads. We had a lead. Now, this was when I was in the moving business, and it came across as like a 10-person company moving in, moving in a year. And I'm like, I don't want to go out. They're like, please go out. I'm like, I don't want to go out. So my inside rep was like, please go out. So I'm like dreading it. And I go out, and I didn't know at the time. And I get there. It's this big office building, beautiful reception area. They're like, oh, they're expecting you. I come in, double doors for this big conference room, 10 people around the conference table. They all stand up. And they're like, thank you so much for coming out. You're the only mover that would come out. And I'm like, well, I'm the only one dumb enough. What the hell is going on here? So they sat down. It was a little company called Electronic Data Systems.
Yeah.
Ross Perot's company.
Yeah.
I knew EDS.
EDS.
I didn't know, at that time. So it turned out it was a move committee of 10. They had 250 stations over here, 170 stations over here. They wanted them combined. They needed storage. They needed parts. They needed space planning. It was the biggest ongoing business in my career. When I sold my moving company, like a quarter of my warehouse was full of their stuff that they were just going to continue to pay to store until they wound up, paying you to dispose of it. But when they called the movers said, how many people are moving? What they heard is how many people in your move committee, because everyone has a big move committee.
Yep.
We just have 10.
Yep.
And so, it takes such a short period of time. So what that means, especially for B2B, you dig down deep and you go for every single one, because you just literally in a room, they all know. And they're like, yeah. And then you sit there, and then they'll start activating, oh yeah, there was this deal and that deal and this deal and that deal. So stop trying to qualify leads. And also, like, they try to use AI to like, well, here's a heat map. They were on your website this many. It doesn't matter. They don't have to follow your, really. So what do? You're sitting back waiting. I'm not going to respond to that until they jump through the hoops that I want them to do before I'll just pick up the phone and just say hi. Now, again, B2B is different because, and if you don't have enough people to do that, you don't have enough people.
Yeah, that's right.
That's not the solution. You don't have enough people. And, if you base it on that model, I mean, you basically, the first company that David Parry worked for took him from 50 million to 45 million. No new marketing.
Yep.
No new advertising. No sales reps, no acquisitions. That was in their dead lead dumpster year after year after year. Literally 30 million. So It's a crazy number, and but it's the easiest thing to execute on. If you don't have enough people to make, and the challenge, I will tell you, the challenge today is it could take you 10 attempts to get somebody on the phone.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean they're not interested. So.
Yeah, and I bet you would agree with this too, is sometimes the most profitable and the best relationships come from the most unexpected places, right?
Everybody's got that story.
One of these bad leads, admittedly, it could be a 10-person office, and you might wind up moving the 10-person office just because you like them. And then 3 years later, they get promoted, and then now they've got a 100-person office because they're a great person and they're easy to get along with. They do their job well, et cetera, et cetera. And then all of a sudden, you've got a 100-person office to move, and 3 years after that, I mean, you've probably got accounts like that. And I've got people in my network that I didn't expect to turn from one thing to something else. I know a guy now owns a major legacy apparel brand, huge brand, very well-known name. And I knew him back when he was basically nobody. And I called him up about a month ago, and he was like, "Yeah, this one." I couldn't believe it. I hadn't kept in touch with him for a couple of years. We reconnected, and he's looking at doing EOS, and because he wants his company to keep growing. So yeah, it's the most unexpected places, and I think just having that curiosity and that willingness to be open to other experiences and other people is huge, right? Like, yeah, your time is valuable, but at the same time, the world is interesting. The unexpected happens. Embrace that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, I think the thing is that a lot of companies don't have the manpower to execute on that. And sometimes it doesn't have to be like a full-fledged salesperson. It's just get somebody in like that can just call and introduce themselves. Like, okay, sales rep's going to make 3 attempts, then give it to Larry. Larry's going to call. Hey, this is Larry from XYZ company. Hey, thanks for reaching out to us. Listen, I just sent you article. I don't know if you're interested in blue widgets or red widgets, but we've got both. I just sent you an article. And then just keep following up. Just keep calling back. And by the fourth time that you follow up, your competitors have all given up. They've all given up after a half an attempt, right?
Yeah.
On average, after half an attempt. So just that, putting that in, I think it's worth it if you could potentially have, and I don't ever write this down, but there could be, if you're a $10 million company, there could be $10 million in your dead lead dumpster.
Yeah.
I have David Parrott. I have evidence of this, and it's just if you don't have enough people, or if your team's not doing it, or that sometimes outside sales reps are different. They're closers, right? And maybe that's not the right role. That's the other thing that I've noticed with the rock stars is they recognize that you got your closers. They ain't hunters. They're not the kind of person that's going to relentlessly follow up on that opportunity. So if that's all you have, well, then there could be $10 million in your dead lead dumpster. But why not take, and it's not an expensive person, just somebody that's polite.
Yeah.
They don't even have to sell. They just have to say, hey, James, I just wanted to follow up with you. I don't know if you connected with our sales rep. My name is Larry. I'm here for you. I can give you any information that you need. That voicemail just separated you from 99% of your competition if you reached out to 3 different competitors. Yep. So I don't know. Seems easy to me.
There's gold in them there dumpsters.
Yes, there are. There are.
There absolutely are. I mean, I've done countless projects over the years where we've done exactly what you're describing. We go back into the CRM and the databases and the web logs, depending on where they're hiding, and just dig through and establish campaigns for to try to recapture these folks, and have always been surprised. I shouldn't be at this point, but have always been surprised at the results that come out of it. And I think it's exactly what you're saying, which is that there's just either there's not enough effort put in, there's not enough process put in place, there's not the tracking, there's not the personnel, whatever. There's some kind of gap that's leaving those potentially warm leads on the table for you just to come and get them,
And it's the easiest thing to test.
Yep.
You could hire somebody part-time to say, let's do it over the course of a quarter, Jen.
Sure.
It's going to cost this. And all we're going to do is just leave 4 or 5 voicemails saying, hey, it's Larry again from Larry's Blue Widgets. Just wanted to let you know. I don't know if you connected with her, and just have that cadence of like, okay, what are those 4 calls that and then see what gets unearthed.
Yep.
And I think people would be surprised. And also on the buying side, I don't know if you know this, we buy stuff for my business. Getting somebody to call you back when you're ready to write a check.
Yeah.
Just astounding. But so what's the fun part? What are like some of the most joyous moments or like happy things that have happened or relationships that you've developed from this? Because you seem genuinely happy.
Well, thanks.
You seem like a genuinely happy person, and you seem like you really enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you must have some like really cool. What are some anecdotes or some cool stories about like, man, this was just what it's all about?
Well, I one of my favorites is I went to a random networking session and near my home, didn't really expect anything to come of it. And then after the session was over, I was approached. I didn't go up to this guy. I didn't start the conversation with this guy. I was approached by a guy who said immediately, these are the first words out of his mouth. I did $5 million last year. I don't know what to do. My accountant told me to get traction. I need help. And I was like, okay, let's set some time. And going through the process with him was just amazing. It was really just him and his wife running the business and just killing themselves. They were in a stage where they had a bunch of operational people that were delivering the service, but they didn't have salespeople, they didn't have marketing people, and they didn't have really strong finance either. So we went through and did the entire process top to bottom. So establish the vision, establish the internal culture, right people, right seats, organizational chart, processes, data, meetings, et cetera, and got him on the right track. And he's projected to double his revenue this year at this point. So he's happier now. He's got more time on his hands where he's able to actually spend time with his wife and spend time with his family and do things that he actually wants to do, which is really what I find gratifying. He was telling me that he's buying a place down in Rock Hall, Maryland. I don't know if you guys
beautiful.
know that area,
God.
but it's beautiful. He's buying a place down in Rock Hall, Maryland. He's got a boat. He's going down there. And when I met him, he was like a bundle of nerves. He wasn't taking time off. It was constant. It was a constant situation where somebody's off or somebody's out or something happened and was just running from fire to fire to fire to fire because his people didn't know how to deal with those fires, but he did. So every single thing came to him. And now that he's got the right people in place to be able to delegate those fires, number one, the fires are happening a lot less often because he's got the processes in place to avoid those fires in the first place. And number two, those fires, when they do happen, they don't come to him unless they're really, really, really exceptional and really different. And at this point, they've operationalized the business. So he's free. He's gone from a place of being, he was chasing after his business. It was like a van going down the road with the doors flapping open. He's just trying to catch up and jump in the back and try to take control. Now he's in the driver's seat, right? He actually is completely in control of his business. And it's so great to see. And they're smiling now, and they're happy. That's what's really gratifying about what I do is helping people get their personal lives back by structuring their business so that it gives them what they actually want, which most people, what they want is they want to make more money and they want to be able to spend more time doing what they enjoy. And that's what makes me happy too.
That's cool. It's a great way to end on a positive note.
Thanks.
That's really, and that's the cool thing I think it's about the relationships that you've developed.
Yeah.
Like I have relationships now with people that I've done business with all over the world.
Yeah.
And also people that you've helped them kind of grow and achieve stuff that they never thought they could possibly achieve. I think that's one of the greatest things for me is watching people really blossom.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So, James, how can people reach you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think the easiest way to reach me would probably be to go to the EOS worldwide site and search for me there. But I'm also on LinkedIn. As I said before, my name is James Wisdom. And I'm also on Twitter, if that's something you like. I'm at Wisdom on Twitter. I was one of the early adopters. So
a round of applause. A round of applause.
Everybody always smiles about that. But yeah, so at Wisdom on Twitter, James Wisdom on LinkedIn, or you can literally just search on Google, like most people wind up doing, James Wisdom, EOS, and you'll find your way to me. Or you can just give me a call. I'm at 484-880-4271.
James, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
Thank you, Larry. This has been great.
Yeah. And Herman, stand-in producer, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, it was fun.
Yeah, this is really good.
It's fun being at the back desk. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Herman.
Yeah, thank you. Great
All
conversation.
Right. Thank you very much. It's been Larry Dillon from Wendover and Scalable Insights podcast. Happy selling, growing,
Yes.
prospering,
Prospering.
having fun. Thanks.
Excellent.